Today I have Jerry Huettmann from Rejuvenation's Lighting joining us. I'm Christian Gladu from the Bungalow company. We're really excited to have Rejuvenations here today. Definitely has been an icon company for us as we have developed the Bungalow company. They were one of our the first vendors we really found out there that were speaking the same language as we are. So we've used a lot of their product over the years, and have enjoyed how our relationship has evolved. So Jerry, I thought maybe we could start with a little discussion around LED lighting. I was talking with some folks here in the office, and it's one of the trend pieces that we've seen change in the last 10 years or so. We've there's other things that have kind of directed a lot of our design, and things like front-loaded washers and dryers, flat-screen televisions, gas fireplaces. There's been these elements that have come in that, in dealing with classical design elements, it's like, well, how do you make these work? And they actually do really have an effect on how we plan. And lighting for us is, I see that it's such an individual piece, and with all the choices that we have, it's always interesting to see how these new pieces of technology will come in, and how they affect us from an environmental perspective, and how they affect the quality of light. And I thought it might be interesting to hear your take on that.
Yeah, we come from, since 1977, we come from more of a historical standpoint. It's in our DNA that we have always been classical lighting and American house parts, yet we recognize that as we move forward, technology is of course going to inform what we do. So how do we reach forward, apply LED, for example, to our existing designs, but also develop with LED in place? We wanted to respond, of course, to Title 24 in California, which is one of our greatest needs. But really, we can see that it has a more broad application, and the quality of LED, thank goodness, has really changed, right? So a beautiful 2700 Kelvin read, that warm white light that really is reminiscent of incandescent lighting at a tenth of the power output, and very low heat, very low maintenance. We warrant our product, LED product, 5 years right out of the gate. So it's a combination of energy savings, certainly environmental impact. We can still meet the aesthetic as we're moving forward with new LED technology, and the maintenance on it is so low. So it's very low touch once it's in place.
Well, I think that's really nice, and because one of the things that I think people are looking for in dealing with with classic design, and whether it be arts and crafts or be colonial or whatever the historic piece as I think is recreating kind of that ambiance. And that ambiance, for us, is so often around it's around color, it's around light, it's around the texture that all of that provides. And certainly I think people focus on natural daylight so much in a house. But I always say to people, you have to be prepared for a house with a lot of light, because at night, it's as light as it was during the day, it's that dark. So how do we fill that, and what are the tools that we have to not just make that house where you're looking into black windows and reflections of yourself, but how to fill the space with light in a way that makes you understand that it's a lighthouse during the day, but it's not a dark house at night. So go ahead.
And Christian, you do. I looked at your product. The Bungalow company does such a beautiful job of rendering the outside in during the day and inviting that, and then recreating that ambiance of lighting, whether it's task or function or fashion lighting by night. And I think you're right. I would rather have a space that's overlit, where I have many choices to either dim by rheostat or turn things on and off for special occasions or task and function or aesthetic, than having something dimly lit where we have to always augment with floor lighting or portables. So I think you're right on it in terms of getting as much light quality. And I always think about that. I'm native of Portland, so I always think about the Northwest in particular, where we crave light and we crave the quality of light. And not just obviously in the Northwest, it's all over, but especially here, people really celebrate and come to life when there is better light. You can see it in the sunshine. It brings people out in droves, right? So I think it's equally important in our indoor spaces as well.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing I find really interesting is, from our perspective, when we're designing houses, it's very easy for lighting for customers to let lighting slip as an afterthought, and they want a generic solution. And I tell people, like, we have a lot of house plans that will work on multiple sites, but I have never seen one of our houses with the same lighting plan recreated. If people are really asking the questions and looking at their life introspectively and how they're going to live in the space, I feel like the lighting plan is different for everybody. And it's like there's so many options. It's like, and if you're kind of in the business of designing house plans, if that part of it is kind of being dealt with, it's not a full service contract for us. The tendency is for people to use a lot of can lights, and I feel like I always try to direct people into the idea that we try to light, with natural light, we try to light every room with natural windows from at least 2 directions. And once we're starting to deal with actual spaces inside and artificial light, I always try to describe light as pools. And the idea that maybe you might have some can lights, but the reality of it is there's all these other things you do in the space. So how do you go about identifying how you're going to live in the house and what the other types of lighting are? And I think that Rejuvenations has always had very nice fixtures that work with us aesthetically. But it's exciting to see how those light fixtures have evolved with the newer technology, and also that you guys have some service available where there's some lighting consultation that you can do in your showrooms, from what I understand.
Correct. We do both in-home and in showroom consultations. And Christian, I'm glad you touched on this point. We're really design-driven, so we really rely on the design community, people such as yourselves in development that are bringing the ever-changing needs of the clients to us, and that really informs our development. So we like to stay as close to the pulse on the street with developments, also the architectural and design firms. We also look at fashion, we look at nature, we look at food and beverage. We look at a lot of different things that influence us, but certainly the design community helps drive our development. And when you talk about pools of light, it's interesting. We're looking at rooms in that way. So each room has an opportunity for a task, a function, an aesthetic, or just an ambiance. Just a feeling when you walk in. So that's a great way to view lighting in pools. I love that description.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's interesting is really the kind of the scale of lighting. I feel like when I started doing this, we opened the Bungalow company in '96, and we were using we were kind of scavenging around. The things weren't available everywhere, and the scale of the houses kind of changed. Like some of our original studies were of houses in Seattle, where a lot of the ceiling heights most of them were like 8'4.5". In a conventional bungalow that where we started our remodel business, and as we started to create new house designs, those designs started to have 9-foot and sometimes 10-foot ceilings. And I found a drastic difference in the performance of fixtures and how they lit the rooms between that the old school 8'4.5" ceilings to all of a sudden a 9 or 10-foot ceiling. So I've been interested in how Rejuvenation has kind of moved through the scale. I feel like and I don't know, I'd be interested to hear what the kind of R&D is behind that, because it seems like the scale has evolved, to meet kind of the more prevalent ceiling heights.
Scale has evolved, and you hit on a great piece that we're in development with right now with our Northwest Modern collection and our updated Craftsman collections, and that is we immediately identified this year that scale was very important. We need smaller pocket niche lighting, but we also need grand scale, or we need the ability to be able to cluster our existing lighting collections to create more of a chandelier effect or more grand scale lighting. Longer rods, longer cord lengths, bigger diameters, pans, and lights that are stronger in lighting and total output, but also can be dimmed down. So scale is really, it's at the foremost of our development right now, and we almost every family that we're developing currently has larger scale lighting involved.
Oh, interesting. The other thing I'm interested in is, like, what would be some advice you might give somebody, whether they're building a new house or remodeling, because I think that the lighting environment is kind of daunting. People have a hard time judging scale without going to the showroom, and even sometimes I think going to the showroom they have a difficult time, getting the right scale. Is there any place that any advice you would give somebody in whether it's a newer or an old house on getting started?
Absolutely. Christian, I'm going to back up to one thing that you said earlier, and that is do not let it be an afterthought. Don't wait until mid-project to begin making those lighting decisions. Weave it in right in the beginning. For us, of course, we're a lighting company, so it's the jewelry to the room. It's what makes us look great in all of our gatherings. And or functions over our desks. So it's really important. So I would say begin that process earlier than later. There's so much information on the web, and certainly leveraging your designer is the best tool you might have. But great lighting showrooms such as ours, where you can come in and look at size and scale, gather tear sheets, and begin building a lighting portfolio as if you were working on this as a separate design project, and then make it fit into the overall design project with your A&D firm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I always tell people it's never too early to start. And I also know that even when before I'm on the computer, I'm still old school. I still do a lot of hand drawing and my conceptualization, and I actually kind of draw these pools of light while I'm drawing the plan. I have ideas around that, and getting that translated and into a fixture is. There's many steps in there, and it seems to involve an endless number of things. Cabinets, height of cabinets, window heights, actual color and materials, and so it is interesting to try to get the consumer, the client, on board early and just be. I ask them. It's interesting the way you call them families. I ask people to kind of look for a family or a direction, something that speaks to them before we necessarily present a whole lighting package. And I think the scale is usually the thing we have to either tune them up or tune them down on. But getting people to think about that, so that when you're laying out cabinets, you're not lighting the top of a cabinet, or you're not choosing fixtures that are not going to perform with the proper ceiling heights and or influence from the outside too.
Absolutely, and I think again you're speaking our language, and I love that, and that is to really work within your desire and your aesthetic and the overall feeling, mood that you want to create. The other considerations are scale, size, scope, projection from wall, aging in place, how do you entertain, where's your workspace, where's your play space or your working out space. These are all the considerations that a good lighting plan will have in it.
Yeah. And I think it's almost like, I think about it as well as almost like developing a series of scenes. Like I have the living room on Monday morning feels much different than the living room does on Friday night.
Yes.
So trying to find a way that where those spaces can, people will talk a lot about how to make spaces big and open and all function together. But also I think the beautiful thing with controlled light is that you can also shut them down, change the whole mood, change the ambiance in a way that it can disconnect you from what's going on in the outside world and kind of bring it into a more intimate setting.
It absolutely sets mood, and I love the idea of changeable spaces. I think we need to maximize what we have, whether that's a large space or a smaller, more intimate space. Regardless of square footage, I think everything needs to be multi-dimensional, and changing the mood with lighting is one of the easiest things to do to achieve that.
Yeah, literally a flip of a switch, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing, what about how you guys are inspired now? Like you mentioned this new, sounds like is it a mid-century modern collection or a modern collection you're working on right now?
Yes, well, we are definitely blowing wide open and giving more color to our mid-century mix that we've had in place, and it's becoming much more broad in its families, both size and scale. But we have a new point of view that we are loosely titling Northwest Modern, and it's really leveraging local artisans whenever possible, and the use of mixed materials, pottery, wood, mixed metals. How do we bring kind of those natural elements into industrial chic and soften it up, or how do we create updated craftsman looks? And I think the new Northwest Modern is going to hit on all of those points.
That's nice, and I also encourage people too. I feel like sometimes with people can be really evangelical about putting an arts and crafts fixture in an arts and crafts house. But
Yes.
there are also, I think that what I like is that there are a lot of opportunities within a house to, if you want to take a room and you have a fairly traditional arts and crafts house, you could still step out in a room and say, hey, here's our contemporary space, and maybe we're doing something much different. Maybe this is an office that they didn't have in 1923, full of Mac monitors and all that other, all of our other technology. It's like, so how do we, it's nice that we can take these rooms and kind of separate them and really light the room for its intent. And I think that all of that can be like anything you might collect. I think a beautiful light fixture is just something you collect. And if you can totally change with a change of a few fixtures, you can totally change the period of that room and still have it reside within a more traditional house.
Absolutely, and you really are speaking about the evolution of our own business here too, where we were more period specific, and people were very stringent about, much more strict about honoring the DNA of a particular architectural form. While that's still celebrated in May, I think people are more eclectic now, and they really want to have the best of both, and that is a sense of place, a sense of history, a sense of permanence, but what's also new and fresh and breathes new life into a space. So it's a perfect opportunity for us as designers, both from the manufacturing standpoint and also the drawing standpoint, to marry the best of both worlds. And there's so much available to us now. It's a really exciting time for lighting.
Yeah, I agree, and it's like, I think the thing that's really nice too is like in terms of how the home has evolved. Now we're doing so many things at home that we weren't doing before. Just as simply like the work, how the workplace has evolved into the house. And for a while, everybody was building an isolated office within a house, and that's how they were going to work. And we realized that actually, the whole house has become, a place where you can connect and. To your job, to social media, to any number of things. So it really has changed. Like any space basically needs to be able to be a place where you can communicate and be social, whether it be internal or external to your family. So I think that the evolution of these light fixtures and how we light houses is really changing how the floor plans evolve, and the fact that we don't need huge isolated spaces to accomplish things like offices. It can be a breakfast nook. It can be a bar at a dining room. It can be the kitchen table.
I agree. Technology will inform more and more the design decisions, obviously, and as will, I believe, a sense of permanence and entertaining. I feel like at the same time we've got this tension between high-tech, we've also got this tension of high-touch, where people are coming back home and really celebrating the home and the garden again. So it's all going to blend in a very beautiful way when it's done very thoughtfully.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to know that the manufacturers of this stuff are thinking the same way, and you can feel it. It's interesting to see how clients are driving those decisions, and that they're very willing to go along with it and are encouraged and have encouraged kind of that evolution. It's not a false evolution. Mm-hmm. I feel like some pieces of technology have falsely informed us. It's like it really feels like this is the natural way for it to be. And the fact that you guys are really drilling down into energy efficiency and embracing that technology, I know that between compact fluorescence and the first generations of LEDs, it would have been easy to turn your cheek and say, we are a historic company and we do things the old-fashioned way. And I like the fact that you guys really have not done that and have moved forward with both feet.
And it's so rapidly moving, especially when it comes to LED as the new technology. It changes almost overnight, so we have to keep a pulse on it almost on a daily basis, certainly a weekly basis, in terms of what's developing in the industry. So we're looking at flat boards, we're looking at clusters, we're looking at things that can serve very small lighting to very grand scale lighting in all workspaces, while protecting the environment and also creating more energy efficiency and cost savings.
That's great. Well, I thank you very much for your time today. It was a lot of fun doing this, and look forward to possibly doing it again.
Christian, thank you very much. I'd love to be on with you again.
Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Thank you.